And the chair also recognizes that when a gentleman from the other side of the aisle is talking about not spending money, then we should pay careful attention. With that, I recognize Ms. Young Kim for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the chair and the ranking member for holding today's hearing on Afghanistan. You know, it's been more than 2 years after the withdrawal, and we have seen today a complete reversion of progress on women's rights in Afghanistan. And according to SIGAR's most recent quarterly report, the several multilateral institutions and international NGOs released statements arguing the Taliban's abuses against women and girls constitute crimes against humanity. And SIGAR previously noted that education is banned for girls past grade 6. Women and girls are banned from public parks. Women are banned from boarding a flight without a male guardian. And women are banned from working with NGOs or the United Nations. While USAID does not engage directly in negotiations of MOUs with the Taliban, the USAID does have a policy on MOUs between the Taliban and NGOs operating in Afghanistan. So I'm interested in hearing about this policy with regard to the protection of women and girls. Mr. Sobko, does state or USAID require Taliban MOUs signed by US-funded NGOs to be submitted for approval before signing?
I believe we have not taken a real look at those MOUs, but I think AID told us in January of this year that there's a new mission order allowing implementing partners to sign MOUs.
So you have not seen any MOUs?
Well, provided they are approved by AID and justified as necessary. So I don't know if my staff has seen any of those MOUs. Let me just check. Mm-hmm. Have we seen any of the MOUs? Yeah, we have. Some of my staff have seen it, and we have samples of those MOUs.
Well, I would like to see some of that too, okay?
Okay, if we can arrange that, yeah.
Does USAID's criterion have requirements that MOUs do not include prohibitions on women working with NGOs? Any staff member that have seen the MOU, can you talk about that?
Yeah, I know AID is pushing against it. I don't know. We'll have to double check those MOUs to see if they have anything about women.
Is USAID or UN able to enforce protections for women NGO workers that are implementing U.S. assistance?
I don't believe they can. From our discussion with UN officials, I mean, I know they initially shut down all of their cooperation with the Taliban over that issue, but I believe they have eventually decided, and I will stand corrected if my staff tells me otherwise, that it was worth more to get the aid out. So they have not stood up to the Taliban on that.
It's really important that we provide the protection for women workers there too, the NGO workers. So I would hope that we can pay attention to that as well.
We're happy to get back to you and more specifics on the MOU. Okay.
You know, is the U.S. continuing to fund education initiatives for children past grade 6 in Afghanistan, following the ban on girls attending school past this grade level? And what about the United Nations?
I don't know if we've looked at that. We issued a recent audit on the education funding, but I don't know if we looked at that time. It covered the period of them preventing them from going beyond the 6th grade. Do we know? We'll have to get back to you on that.
Oh gosh, we didn't get much information out of you today, didn't we? Well,
I don't know if I would agree with that, ma'am.
Well, thank you. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. And now I'd like to recognize Mrs. Smucker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for yielding time and for holding this important hearing today. And I'd like to thank each of the witnesses for being here, and particularly Ms. Tartak for being here to share your story. It's shocking to see what's happening in our society, what's happening on our campuses. There's something wrong with the moral fabric of our society when you have anti-Semitism rising in the way that we are seeing today. And it's hard to believe that we're here, particularly when we've seen the atrocities that Hamas have committed against the state of Israel in October. These were barbaric, inhumane, and deserving of strong retaliation. 1,400 innocent individuals brutally murdered, hundreds more still held hostage by Hamas, and 30 Americans killed in these attacks as well. And on these college campuses, in many cases, no mention made of any of that in these protests, no mention made of Hamas as a terrorist group. Instead, we're seeing, as you said, Ms. Tartak, Jewish students retreating to their Jewish centers in our college campuses. So it's totally unacceptable and should be called out for what it is. It's a hate crime. And unfortunately, far too many institutions of higher education are failing to do their duty to protect Jewish students and faculty from this aggression. And I think you've heard today that members of this committee are resolute in condemning anti-Semitism, and I'm hearing that on a bipartisan basis. And we continue to stand firmly behind Israel, behind Jews here in America, and behind Jewish students on college campuses. But I think about where do we get here? And Rabbi Hauer, you mentioned in your testimony that anti-Semitism has been cultivated in our K through 12 system, and then that spreads to institutions of higher education. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. I'm from Pennsylvania, and I just want to give this background as well. There's an effort in Pennsylvania to teach about the Holocaust in our K through 12 system, led by a professor at Penn State. I've visited some of the schools that have implemented teaching about the Holocaust at a young age, and how to do this. It's a difficult subject, and how to do it with very young students. But what is going wrong beginning in our K through 12 system that we're at the point where we are today?
Thank you for the question. I'm not sure if I would use the word myself, cultivated. I think what we have seen very clearly is that the kinds of behaviors and the kinds of environments that have been created in university campuses, which until very recently we only found in university campuses, we are now finding in K through 12, or specifically middle school through 12 environments. From our perspective, we have something called Jewish student unions, which are clubs which are held in public schools, and hundreds of public schools across the country for Jewish students who want to attend the club in the school hours. It's constitutional to be able to do so. We have had, especially since October 7th, but preceding it as well, but incredible spike in it since October 7th, descriptions of exactly the kinds of things that have been described here as occurring on university campuses. Rallies in middle and high schools, our clubs, students coming in to a club of Jewish students, sitting in the back and disrupting and making it impossible for the Jewish students to carry on, and then in fact chasing the students back towards their classrooms. We've had teachers in high schools who have been doing art projects of showing, for example, a fist emblazoned with Palestinian colors going through the Israeli. Kinds of things which are making students deeply uncomfortable. It didn't happen before. And in a certain sense, I think that's especially compelling for us to consider in Title VI discussions, because universities, it's been there for a while. It's going to be a big project to dial it back. in K through 12 schools, it's just beginning. It's just beginning, and we have to address it very, very
I know I'm
firmly.
out of time, but I would be very interested in hearing your thoughts on how can we change that in K through 12s? How important is education about the Holocaust? What can we do differently? But I don't have time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.